When we wake up in the morning, the first thought that comes to our mind often decides the quality of the day that follows. If we wake up heavy, thinking about the burdens of yesterday, then those burdens continue to weigh us down. But if we wake up with the intention to create lightness, to create joy, then already the day takes on a different direction. Happiness is not something that simply arrives at our doorstep. Happiness is not an accident. It is a conscious practice. It requires awareness, it requires discipline, and it requires effort. Just as the body becomes strong when we train it, the mind becomes bright when we cultivate it. And so, the challenge for each one of us is simple. Do not wait for happiness to come from outside. Push yourself to create it inside, every single day. Every day we are faced with choices. Choices about how we think, how we respond, and how we carry ourselves through the situations of life. Some people believe that happiness is something that comes to us when everything around us is perfect. They think it depends on circumstances, on wealth, on recognition, or on relationships. But if we carefully observe life, we realize that those conditions are always changing. They are never stable. One day you may have everything you thought you wanted, and yet you still feel an emptiness inside. Another day, you may be struggling with difficulties, but strangely, you feel peaceful and light. This shows us that happiness is not dependent on what is happening around us. It is rooted in how we direct our mind and heart. It is a state of being that must be practiced deliberately, just as one practices breathing, walking, or training the body. The truth is that the mind has a natural tendency to wander. It gets pulled toward negativity, toward worries, toward what is missing. If you leave the mind unmanaged, it will always find something to complain about. This is why it is essential to cultivate awareness. Happiness does not come by accident. Happiness is created through a conscious decision to guide your attention to the right places. Imagine you are holding a lamp in the darkness. Wherever you point this lamp, the darkness disappears and light appears. In the same way, wherever you direct your attention, that is what grows stronger inside you. If you point your attention toward your struggles, you feed your struggles. If you point it toward your gratitude grows and your heart feels lighter. This is why we must push ourselves to redirect the mind every day. It is not always easy, but it is always possible. In the morning, when you wake up, you have a choice. You can wake up and immediately think about all the problems that await you. Or you can wake up and remind yourself of one simple reason to be thankful. Perhaps you are thankful that you woke up at all. Perhaps you are thankful for the breath in your lungs, for the people in your life, or simply for the opportunity to try again. The practice is not about ignoring difficulties, but about remembering that happiness can be built alongside them. A strong tree does not grow without wind. A bright flame does not shine without darkness around it. And so, when challenges arise, they do not have to take away your happiness. They can be the very conditions through which your happiness grows stronger. Happiness is also closely connected to discipline. Many people wait for motivation to come, but motivation is not always present. What creates transformation is not waiting for the perfect feeling, but practicing discipline regardless of how you feel. Just as a martial artist trains daily, whether the body feels tired or energized, happiness also requires this inner training. You cannot simply wish to be happy. You must take action. Sometimes the action is small, like smiling at a stranger or pausing to notice the sky. Sometimes the action is larger, like choosing to let go of anger or forgiving someone who has hurt you. Each time you take this action, you are pushing yourself beyond the laziness of the mind that prefers to complain. You are telling yourself, I am in charge of my happiness. The body and the mind are deeply connected. When the body is inactive, heavy and stagnant, the mind follows. When the body moves, when it breathes deeply, when it stretches and trains, the mind also becomes more alive. This is why physical training is not only about strength, it is about the spirit. Every push up, every step, every breath is a reminder that you can move forward. The same applies to happiness. Push yourself to get up, to move, to breathe, to take small steps in the direction of joy. Waiting for happiness is like waiting for strength without training the muscles. It will never arrive unless you practice. Another key aspect is compassion. Often, people believe that pushing themselves to be happy means forcing a smile and ignoring pain. But true happiness does not grow from denial. It grows from understanding. When you acknowledge your emotions without letting them control you, when you show kindness to yourself instead of harshness, you create space for happiness to rise. Compassion is the soil in which happiness grows. Without compassion, happiness becomes fragile and fake. With compassion, it becomes resilient and authentic. And so, pushing yourself to be happy is not about chasing an external reward. It is not about pretending that everything is fine. It is about training your awareness, practicing discipline, moving your body, and nurturing compassion. Each day you have a chance to begin again. Each morning is like an empty page, and you hold the pen. The question is, where will you direct your attention? How will you train your mind? And what kind of energy will you cultivate inside? One of the greatest misunderstandings people have about happiness is believing that it is something passive, something that will arrive by chance when the conditions of life align perfectly. They wait for the right job, the right relationship, the right achievement, thinking that only then they can feel complete. But life is not built on waiting. Life is built on living. Happiness is not discovered at the end of a journey. It is practiced step by step during the journey itself. To push yourself toward happiness every day means to become an active participant in shaping the quality of your own life. It means recognizing that even in small actions, you hold the power to shift your inner state. If you look at the nature of the mind, you see that it is always searching. It searches for comfort, it searches for recognition, it searches for what is missing. The moment you achieve one thing, the mind immediately looks for the next. This endless chase is exhausting because it never allows you to rest in the present moment. But when you train yourself to stop this constant chasing and instead appreciate what already is, you begin to realize that happiness has been within you the entire time. The push you need is not to chase more, but to slow down, to breathe, and to notice. The flowers do not bloom because they hurry. They bloom because they allow the process of growth to unfold with patience. In the same way, happiness blooms when you stop running after it and instead nurture it within the soil of your daily life. Consider how often people repeat the same thoughts day after day. If yesterday you were worried, today those same worries return unless you consciously interrupt them. The mind is like a path in the forest. The more you walk on the same trail, the deeper and clearer it becomes. If you walk the trail of worry, that path becomes easy for your mind to follow. But if you begin to create a new path, one of gratitude, kindness, and joy, slowly that trail grows stronger. This is the essence of pushing yourself to break free from the automatic patterns of negativity and carve new trails in the landscape of your mind. It requires effort in the beginning, just like cutting through a dense forest, but over time it becomes easier until it becomes natural. Happiness also requires alignment between your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Many people think one way, speak another way, and act in a third way. This lack of alignment creates inner tension and restlessness. You cannot feel at peace when you are divided inside yourself. To push yourself toward happiness is to practice harmony between what you believe, what you say, and what you do. If you value kindness, then speak kindly and act kindly. If you value honesty, then live with honesty. When your inner values and your outer behavior match, you no longer waste energy on inner conflict. This alignment brings a quiet joy that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. Discipline plays an important role in this process. Every practice in life, whether it is martial arts, meditation, or the pursuit of personal growth, requires consistency. Happiness is no different. If you wait for it to arrive only when you feel like practicing, you will remain stuck. But if you build rituals that invite happiness into your day, it becomes a natural rhythm. For some, this ritual may be a few minutes of meditation. For others, it may be movement or writing down 3 things they are grateful for. What matters is not the size of the ritual, but the consistency. The small daily push is more powerful than a rare moment of inspiration. Drops of water falling consistently can carve through stone. In the same way, small consistent actions carve happiness into the structure of your life. There is also a deep connection between happiness and service. When you focus only on yourself, your problems appear larger, your disappointments weigh heavier, and your struggles seem endless. But when you extend yourself toward others, when you offer support, kindness, or encouragement, something shifts. Helping another person creates a ripple effect, not only in their life but also in your own. You realize that happiness expands when it is shared. The act of giving reminds you that your existence is meaningful, that you are connected to something greater than your own concerns. Pushing yourself to contribute in small ways each day is a powerful practice in cultivating genuine happiness. Another important aspect is resilience. Life will not always move in the direction we want. There will be setbacks, losses, and disappointments. If you connect your happiness only to the absence of challenges, you will always be disappointed. But if you train yourself to remain steady despite the storms, you discover that happiness is not fragile. It can withstand difficulties. Just as bamboo bends in the wind but does not break, the mind that has trained resilience can experience hardships without losing its inner balance. Pushing yourself to be happy each day means remembering that happiness is not the denial of pain, but the strength to carry light even in the midst of darkness. Ultimately, happiness is not a gift that someone else can hand to you. It is an ability that you must cultivate through awareness, discipline, alignment, service, and resilience. It is a practice that asks you to participate actively, to choose daily, and to train continuously. Just as a warrior sharpens his blade not once but again and again, happiness must be sharpened by daily practice until it becomes part of who you are. Every human being carries within them both the potential for suffering and the potential for joy. The question is not whether these emotions will arise, but which of them we will nurture and strengthen. The mind is like a garden, and every thought is a seed. Some seeds grow into weeds of fear, anger, or doubt. Other seeds grow into flowers of gratitude, patience, and happiness. What grows depends on what we choose to water. If we allow the weeds of negative thinking to dominate, they will spread quickly and suffocate everything else. But if we consciously water the seeds of joy, we create an inner environment where happiness can thrive. The challenge is that weeds often grow naturally without effort, while flowers require care. This is why we must push ourselves to choose which seeds to feed every single day. The mind is not naturally calm. It moves like a restless monkey, jumping from one branch to another, never satisfied with where it is. Left unchecked, it runs to the past with regret and to the future with fear. In this constant movement, happiness slips away. To cultivate happiness, we must first cultivate presence. Presence is the ability to be fully aware of this moment without judgment. It means noticing the breath, noticing the body, noticing the life that is unfolding right now. When you are present, you no longer live in the shadow of yesterday or the worries of tomorrow. You live in the reality of today, and it is only in this reality that happiness can exist. No one can be happy in the past or in the future, because neither of them is real anymore. The present moment is the only place where happiness can be experienced, and so pushing yourself to return to the present is the foundation of inner peace. Happiness also depends on how we interpret our experiences. Two people can face the same challenge, and one will feel broken while the other feels strengthened. The difference is not in the challenge itself, but in the meaning each person gives to it. If you see difficulties as enemies, they will drain your happiness. But if you see them as teachers, they can deepen your wisdom and resilience. The story you tell yourself about your experiences shapes the way you feel. This means that happiness is not about controlling what happens to you, but about controlling the meaning you create from it. Training the mind to interpret life in a way that supports growth rather than destruction is an essential practice. Every time you reframe a difficulty as an opportunity to learn, you are pushing yourself toward happiness. There is also a strong relationship between happiness and gratitude. Gratitude is the practice of recognizing what is already present rather than focusing on what is missing. The modern world often teaches us to desire more, to compare ourselves to others, and to believe that happiness will come when we finally achieve what we do not yet have. But this is an endless trap. True happiness begins when you pause and appreciate the small blessings that are already around you. The warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, the comfort of a friend's presence, or even the simple ability to breathe are gifts that many overlook. Gratitude is the key that transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences. To push yourself to be happy is to train your eyes to see these gifts each day, no matter how small they may seem. The pursuit of happiness also requires courage. Many people are afraid to step outside their comfort zones. They remain in situations that drain their energy because they fear change. But happiness often lies on the other side of fear. It requires the courage to let go of what no longer serves you, the courage to forgive, the courage to take risks, and the courage to trust the unknown. Each time you choose courage over fear, you expand your capacity for happiness. You prove to yourself that you are stronger than the limitations your mind creates. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it, and this forward movement opens the path for joy. Happiness is also connected to balance. When life is lived in extremes, either of work without rest or pleasure without discipline, happiness becomes unstable. Balance is the art of knowing when to act and when to pause, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to hold on and when to let go. Just as the body cannot function if it is deprived of both rest and activity, the mind also cannot be peaceful without balance. To push yourself toward happiness is to examine the areas of your life that are out of harmony and bring them back into alignment. This balance is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you continuously adjust, like the steady hand of someone walking across a rope. Each adjustment keeps you moving forward without falling into extremes. Happiness is not something that appears suddenly from outside circumstances. It is something that requires cultivation through inner awareness. To cultivate happiness, one must learn to observe the mind. The mind is full of impulses, reactions, and habits that often lead us away from joy. It becomes restless when things do not go as planned. It becomes heavy when expectations are not met. And it becomes dissatisfied when it constantly compares itself to others. If you do not notice these tendencies, they take control, and without realizing it, you allow the mind to steal your happiness. The first step is to become aware, to observe what kind of thoughts and emotions arise in different situations, and to ask yourself whether these states are supporting your growth or weakening your spirit. Awareness gives you the power to choose rather than to react. Happiness grows in the space between stimulus and response. Something happens to you, someone says a word, or a challenge appears in your path. Immediately, your mind begins to react, often automatically. But if you are aware, you can create a small pause, a gap before the reaction takes over. In that gap lies freedom. In that gap, you can decide whether to respond with anger or with patience, with frustration or with understanding. This conscious choice is the foundation of happiness because it means you are no longer a prisoner of your emotions. You are no longer dragged by every wave of feeling. Instead, you become like the deep ocean beneath the waves. Calm, steady, and undisturbed, the body and mind are not separate. What happens in the body directly influences what happens in the mind. If the breath is shallow and fast, the mind becomes restless. If the body is tense, the mind cannot relax. This is why practices such as deep breathing, meditation, or mindful movement are so powerful for happiness. They bring harmony back to the connection between body and mind. When you train yourself to breathe with awareness, you signal to the body that there is no threat, that it can relax, and as the body relaxes, the mind begins to quieten. In this quiet state, happiness naturally arises, not because something outside has changed, but because you have changed the state within yourself. Discipline is another essential aspect. Many people misunderstand happiness as a feeling that arrives only when life is easy. But lasting happiness requires discipline in how you think, how you speak, and how you act. Discipline in thinking means not allowing negative patterns to dominate the mind. Discipline in speech means using words that heal rather than harm. Discipline in action means living in alignment with your values, even when it is difficult. At first, this discipline feels like effort, but over time it becomes natural. Just like water shaping stone over many years, disciplined effort shapes the character of your mind, making it stronger, clearer, and more peaceful. When discipline becomes part of your way of being, happiness flows naturally because you live in integrity with your self-forgiveness is also a form of discipline that directly supports happiness. Many people carry anger, resentment, and grudges for years, believing that these emotions protect them from being hurt again. But in truth, they only weigh down the heart and block the possibility of joy. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting what happened or allowing others to harm you again. It means freeing yourself from the burden of carrying pain that no longer serves you. When you forgive, you let go of chains that bind you to the past, and in that letting go, you create space for happiness to return. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, and practicing it requires the courage to release what is heavy so that you can move forward with lightness. Another important part of cultivating happiness is connection. Human beings are not isolated, they are deeply interconnected. The quality of your relationships influences the quality of your happiness. If you surround yourself with negativity, criticism, and constant conflict, it is difficult to maintain peace inside. But if you nurture relationships based on respect, kindness, and understanding, those connections become sources of strength and joy. Pushing yourself to be happy means also pushing yourself to build and maintain healthy connections, to communicate with honesty, and to contribute positively to the lives of others. In giving happiness, you receive it in return. Finally, happiness requires patience. Just as you cannot plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow, you cannot expect happiness to be permanent without continuous care. There will be days when you feel tired, when challenges overwhelm you, when the mind seems too heavy. In those moments, it is easy to believe that happiness is lost. But patience teaches you that even storms pass, even darkness gives way to light. By practicing patience with yourself and with life, you create the resilience to continue pushing forward. Over time, this patience transforms into strength, and this strength becomes the foundation upon which your happiness rests. Happiness is not a gift that arrives by chance. It is a practice that requires awareness, discipline, and courage. Each day, life will present you with choices, whether to remain stuck in old patterns or to push yourself into new possibilities, whether to focus on what is missing or to appreciate what is present, whether to be controlled by circumstances or to take responsibility for your inner state. The mind will always try to wander, to complain, to compare. But with patience and training, you can guide it toward balance, gratitude, and joy. Happiness is not about waiting for the perfect moment. It is about creating the right conditions within yourself, regardless of what is happening outside. It is about choosing to return to the present, to nurture positive seeds, to forgive, to act with integrity, and to share kindness with others. And so, the invitation is simple. Do not wait for happiness. Do not hope for it to appear, but push yourself to practice it every day. And with each step, you will discover that happiness has always been within you.